Hello and welcome to another physical education and wellness video. This one is the second part of the series on year planning options. In this video, we'll be looking at teaching games for understanding basics. My name is Paul Marlette, and this video is in conjunction with the ARPDC. So in this video, we're going to extend on to what we started talking about in the last video on year planning. And we're going to be looking at the history and background of teaching games for understanding. We're going to look at the specific teaching games for understanding categories. We're going to watch a short teaching video that I found online that is a great breakdown. And then we're going to break down a really common game that is played in elementary and see if I can give you some small steps forward. Now, when I thought about doing this session, excuse me, one of the things that I remembered was when I started teaching grade 1 and then grade 2 and 3 and then grade 3, 4 thematics. Now, my background is in phys ed, outdoor ed, leadership, dance, health, all of that kind of stuff. So when I took a contract to teach elementary thematics, it was like a fire hose trying to learn all the stuff that I needed to do. I remember someone saying, well, you have to do the Fontes and Pinnell assessments. And when I started, I had the woman sit down with me who was my mentor. And I said, look, give me the basics so I can start moving forward. I can't teach you teaching games for understanding in 20 minutes. Some people spend like years and like decades learning how to perfect this. There are PhD candidates who are doing it specifically, their whole work on teaching games for understanding. So today, what I would like to do is just give you an overview and open something that may give you a slightly different perspective before you start kids playing a game. Okay, so although there's a lot of content in here, there's some text-heavy slides so you can go back and review and take a look through it, and I'll have some links for some other resources that you can go look through, or send me an email and we can start chatting and look at some other stuff we can do together. So my name is Paul Marlette. If you watched the last video, you've heard I've been doing phys ed for a long time. I love it. I love supporting teachers and I love getting kids active. So teaching games for understanding basics. I'm going to call it TGFU because that is a mouthful. At one point, I did sit on the Health and Physical Education Council of Alberta, and I was one of the editors of the Runner and the Journal. This was an article from 2007. Some of the information I'm going to pull from this. Nicholas Holt was the one who wrote this article. Instead of me just telling you I wanted to make sure you had others' input into this as well. So let's get started. So teaching games for understanding started way back in about 1982, and it was Bunker, Thorpe, and Almond. Werner started joining them later on, and they're English by training. They worked in the English universities, and they developed this model where learners begin by playing a modified game first, and then develop game knowledge and skill proficiency within the representative game activities. Okay. So it was a huge shift because up to that point, skill was taught first. You learned how to shoot a basketball before you played the game of basketball. This flipped that on its head. So once the games have been developed and the children are playing, the teacher can then spend time listening to students and being supportive and flexible to their needs. Okay, this is from another article. But so, for example, the teacher could provide specific instructions about how to create space. So we don't teach the concept first, the kids get experience in it. In the next video series, I'm going to be talking about a method of teaching called the DEAR principle, and it's all about getting experience first. So TGFU is also about building positive youth development and critical thinking choices and structure. Flip back to our new curriculum. We have the critical choice is an overarching theme in the entire curriculum. We have decision making. We now have character development. We have healthy relationships. That's what this model helps us do a little easier than the traditional model. So decision making is the cornerstone of teaching games for understanding. There's also a portion of reflection that needs to bring in. So when we are looking at tactical and strategic enjoyment, however that says there, The key here is that what did we do? What works? What doesn't work? What could we do different? Those conversations can happen very quickly in groups as young as grade 2. Even grade 1 kids, when I taught them, they understand what worked and what didn't. They even can picture how to change the game so it's more fun. Right? Now, when we go back to our active living outcomes, that's what that active living portion is about. What do kids enjoy? Why do they enjoy it? How can we make it even better? So we're promoting strategic thinking during activity and building character. This here is, I'm actually going to read this because when I work with generalists, I'm always reminded of doctors. And doctors get they used to, I think it's gotten better, but they didn't get very long on nutrition. So they weren't nutritionists. Their nutrition models were quite short. When I was in university decades ago, the generalists who were in my program didn't get very much with phys ed. I spent quite a bit of time with them outside of class helping them plan. And what I've found in talking to people around the province over the last 20 years is that sometimes phys ed becomes kind of like an extended recess. So I just want you to listen to this. I'll use my most deepest baritone voice. So small-sided soccer games could be used to promote character. The class could be divided into groups that include at least 3 teams. At all times, 2 teams would be playing, while the third team would be assigned to the roles of referee, assistant referee, and spectators. In addition to helping the referees to understand the rules, the teacher could highlight the importance of spectators. A, making supportive rather than negative comments. B, demonstrating respect for the referees. The teams would rotate every 10 minutes so that all children could occupy the different roles. The teacher could debrief by asking children what they experienced in the different roles and how others' behavior and comments may have influenced them. That hits so many of the cusps, the soft skills, and it's a small adjustment. The thing I don't like about that is that when you have spectators, it means they're not moving. So I would actually have them moving at some point. So TGFU basics number 3, whatever slide we're on. We start with the game, and it needs to be modified to meet the student's needs. Very, very rarely in elementary and junior high do I ever play a full game. When I teach basketball even to the junior high students in my school, we maybe play one day of a full court game. Why? Because they're not ready for it. They don't have the game appreciation, which is the next thing down. You gain appreciation for the bigger game by playing modified games. Again, modified games is going to be a big part of one of the next series that I'm filming, on tips and tricks for phys ed teachers. So when we break that down and we get out of this notion that we're just going to play the game, students learn more and they engage more. So tactical breakout discussions, what works, what doesn't, what would we do differently? These are quick, maybe a minute at a time, and students can do them with each other. You can lead it. Students can lead them. Again, back to making decisions. I'm going to reinforce these things over and over because in the advanced form of a game, the more complicated it gets, the more decisions students have to make. Some of the last things we look at is what skills we need to build, to take ourselves to the next level. And the neat thing is that it all links back. So once we have a new level of skill or tactical awareness, we can increase the complexity of the game. This stuff comes from this video down here. Pigot, was actually trained from the originators of the whole TGFU movement. It's a good little video. So again, TGFU is a broad term, just like when we use physical literacy or subject literacy. These things, different people take them in different ways. So in this overview, I'm going to give you the nuts and bolts, but know that you can take what you want from it. Right? As long as we're moving kids forward and focusing back on these cusps that are actually quite aligned to this in terms of the striking, like there's a whole set on object manipulation that fits beautifully into it. We don't just have to teach object manipulation with like of baseball, which is a really common thing, or dodgeball. You can make dodgeball actually an incredibly rich and full unit where students get an incredible amount of tactical awareness out of that. So this here is the original curricular model. This is the framework. So we start with this game at the top. Now you'll notice that it's already integrating. It's already relating to the learner. So this is a reference to the fact that the game needs to be appropriate to the age and stage of the students and their ability. So if you've got grade ones, you're not going to be playing badminton. It's just not happening, right? Maybe by the end it'll look like badminton, but they're not ready for that. So what is the modified game that we can play to work around that? Now, again, game appreciation. This comes from playing simplified, modified games. I teach Ultimate Frisbee to kids as young as grade 3. The reason being, even lower, grade 2, but we don't actually start with a Frisbee. We play some fun lead-up games that help them understand that they can't clump up. You know that classic, the Frisbee's here, we all move as a single unit. So when we're looking at the game isn't the standard game. It's a modified game. And while they're playing these smaller, like small numbers, small fields, they start to develop some tactical awareness with the questions. And it's actually really fun because kids get engaged and they want to improve. And then we move into, well, what do we do? How do we do it? Then we move into some direct teaching on skill execution. And then this leads to performance. Once we see that, you see this performance, you see them spreading out, now they're ready for a deeper level of complexity. And this does come from a paper from Werner, Thorpe, and Bunker. Bunker joined the group later on in the cycle. There we go. So again, some words from Bunker and Thorpe, Bunker, and Almond. Teaching kids games by playing games. If you were to summarize it all in a single sentence, that's what it would be. First game at appropriate age and stage for movement skills. Needs to be fun. It needs to be challenging, because if it's too easy, then they check out. And it needs to be less complicated or less rules than the full game. Sampling, and so these are key concepts. I'm going to just focus on sampling and representation. So sampling means that if we're going to teach kids how to throw a ball, we're not just going to teach them how to throw one ball. We're going to teach them how to throw rubber chickens, foam balls, bean bags, maybe even rolling things. We're going to look at footballs, rugby balls. In that unit, they're going to get so much experience with different objects that they are going to start to see the crossover. How does it link? Because throwing is pretty much the same with very few exceptions. Now, the representation of the game, these are the modifications. So when we're watching students play, how can we change that game to bring them in a little bit more so they understand what the next level is? Just like in reading or writing, we don't throw kids into writing paragraphs in grade 1. Right? We have to break it down. What's a noun? What's a verb? What's an adverb? We're breaking it down. Phys ed, once you really get into some of the pedagogy of it, is no different than teaching writing. There's a target and there's a current learning. And it gets challenging, as you can imagine, because students are at different levels. So how do you teach the kid who's actually on a baseball team and the kid who can't step and throw with opposition? Now, the big thing here is that the whole principle is based on this idea that games have similar goals, and that's why these categories were created. And the main goal of any game is to overcome an obstacle. There's something that you have to go up again. If it's a target game, you have to be accurate, right? If it's a invasion game, how do you get into the territory? So the representing of the game is reducing the tactical complexity. So right down to, what is the goal of cricket? It's to score runs or to prevent runs from being scored. So the modified games that we now introduce to students are along those lines. Do we actually have to use a bat, or could we use our hand? Right? So it's really an opportunity to shift our perspective on building skills in a very in a very flexible scope and sequence. And again, the other thing that we're always trying to do is to understand that underlying logic, because sports, like math, are just problems to solve. Once you have a conceptual understanding of it, then you can move forward as a team, as an individual, and as a class. These things are essential. So discussions, questioning, debriefing, readjusting. That's the teacher. Something's not working, switch it. Listening to the learner. Are they enjoying it? Today we were playing a game that I made up on the spot, and it was ridiculous. It had hoops and bean bags, and you had to steal them. And we paused in between sessions and I said, okay, what's working, what's not? And they came up with the coolest rules. So we said, let's try it. I'm not leading it. They're the ones who are adapting to suit the challenges that they're facing. All right, this is a review of some of the stuff I've said. As I said, I've put more text in here because I want you to have something to go back to should you need it. Activity appreciation. So this is our 6 pieces of the conceptual framework. Now, a lot of this stuff I am referencing the OFIA website because their website is really robust on this and it's concise and to the point. So I've gone through this stuff. I'm going to review this quickly and then we're going to move forward. So the activity appreciation, again, these are modified games. So it's trying out a game before we teach anything. No skills at first. We just want them to see what we're doing. The tactical awareness, this is how the game works. It's like learning a board game. You have to understand where the pieces move. Decision making, what do I need to make? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to see? When we're applying skill, now you see those decisions being made. That may take a while. And the last one is the performance. This is when it all comes together. Often when it starts to come together, they're ready for the next complication or the next tactical challenge. Right? So instead of having 1 ball in soccer, maybe we add 2. How does that change how the game works? So these guys, these English guys, looked at all the games that were being played and they broke them down into 4 main categories. And remember, these categories are because they have a shared obstacle to overcome. Target games, net and wall games, striking, fielding, and zone and invasion. And there's some changes in this. Even the curricular framework has changed a bit. So let's just talk about each one of these. So target games. This is throwing objects or an object or objects with accuracy to a target. Now this also could mean like throwing it to bounce off of a wall to hit something. That's a level of complexity elementary kids are going to struggle with. Let's say you're having them throw a beanbag at a cone. Okay, and they hit it 10 times in a row. Now we can give them a tennis ball and move the cone closer towards them. Can they hit the cone by bouncing the ball off a wall? That one thing, that's going to give you 15, 20 minutes of practice right there because it's hard. Example is if our disc golf, curling, bowling, darts, snow snakes, if you've ever played that, super fun. Hitting a cone, simply as that, and wall bounce bowling, similar to what I was saying. The other thing I've included in the slide deck is a link to the OFIA Target Games resource. So in here, this is by age and stage. So here are 10 games that you can print off and work with right away. This is from 5 to 12, so these are elementary specific. Next one, net and wall games. So this is sending an object or objects into space while making it hard for the opponents to return or retrieve the object. So volleyball, badminton, kinsei, my new favorite game. I'm doing some sessions around the province on that this year. Table tennis, pickleball, foursquare, all about net and wall. And again, there is a link to 10 of those activities down there. Striking, fielding, pretty straightforward. You're either batting or you're fielding. There are so many cool games in this realm. So quick cricket, I don't play full cricket. This is my favorite game. All of our equipment was made by parents or by myself. Rounders, kickball, chaos. This is also called the Crazy Saskatchewan. I don't know if I can call that. Well, I guess I can because I just did. Lapta, this is a Russian baseball game. Softball, I'm not a fan of softball, baseball for students because just too much standing around. And this one, Gilli Danda, this is an Indian game, which if you've never heard of it, check it out. It's quite enjoyable to play. Zone and invasion. This is where most of our main games fall into. So these are always going to be group games. Target and some of the other ones, you can do those individually. Capture the flag, stuff like that. You'll also see that these transition. Okay, so this one here in handball, basketball, baseball, they involve manipulating activities and spatial awareness. So like I said in the last video, you can get to any of these places through any avenue. If you want to start with an invasion game, you can play 5 or 6 of them, talk about the strategy, and then build in the skill. Or you could literally start with handball and build those cusps through there as well. This is controlling zones. So we have offense and defense, right? So ultimate frisbee, handball, things like that. I had this in the last video. I did want to bring it to people's attention again, just because it's a nice base on how you're planning your year. With the traditional, you pick some activities and you look for the curricular connections to fit those, so you can assess them while you're doing it. With the TGFU, I feel that these are more aligned with the elementary curriculum for phys ed and for the phys ed piece that we're working with, because spatial awareness, that's your tactics. Invasions, target and net wall, that's our movement skills. Same thing with striking and fielding. All right, so teaching games, this is the traditional. TGFU is teaching kids games by playing games. Traditionally is teaching skills to lead up to a game. And sometimes in elementary, when we only have half an hour for phys ed, it's not even teaching. It's just like physical activity, right? So it's just, let's play a game. Let's just play tag without any teaching. I personally would love to see our province move away from just games that kids can play out on the playground, because there's a richness in showing kids the strategy and the levels that they can take those games to. This is a 4-minute video. I'm going to actually play this, and then I'm going to wrap up by kind of deconstructing a game that many people are playing in elementary. So I'm going to stop talking and mute my mic, and we'll let this go.
Now, it's important for you to understand that this video isn't just demonstrating an isolated activity, but rather an individual lesson plan within an Invasion Games unit plan. Teaching games for understanding is a student-centered approach that has 6 key stages. In this video, you will see a teacher teaching an activity, and we will highlight each stage as the activity moves through it. In the first stage of TGFU, the teacher introduces the game form, which has been selected based on the advanced form of the game, in this case handball, and has been chosen to be developmentally appropriate for the grade level he or she is teaching. The game the teacher selected here is Prairie Dog Pickoff, in which every student has a pin and a hoop, and players must defend their pin from other players who are trying to attack it with a ball. The game can begin that if the player's pin gets knocked down, the player simply has to put it back up. However, the teacher can add a modification that if a pin does get knocked down, that player has to take their pin and their hoop and find a new location in the playing area to set up. The teacher can then continue to add layers, such as granting students permission to take 3 steps with the ball. As the students are learning the primary and secondary rules of the game, this represents the second stage of TGFU, which is game appreciation. The students continue to learn the rules of the game through playing the game as the teacher adds more and more variations and modifications to gameplay. The teacher can then continue to add to the tactical complexity of the game by adding new layers and progressions. In this case, if a student knocks down another student's pin, the student whose pin was knocked down must join the other student. The students must now work as a team and defend their base as they try to attack other students' pins. This represents the beginning of Stage 3 of TGFU, which is tactical awareness. With the help of teacher game modifications and questioning, the students will begin to identify key tactics and strategy that can lead to success in the game. It's important to note that in a TGFU lesson, the teacher is never just idly standing by. He or she must always be moving around, asking questions, and making observations of what's happening in gameplay. Things such as key moments, key principles, key tactics, and key skills will help the teacher decide which modifications to add to the game, and also help them during the tactical talk session decide which questions they should be asking their class. Tactical talk allows the teacher to help the students reflect on their decision making in the game. Asking questions such as, "How are you being successful in the game?" allows the students to reflect on the tactics that they've been using throughout the activity. Also, asking the students which skills that are needed to be successful in the game can help the teacher lead into the next stage of TGFU, which is skill execution. In this stage, the teacher will bring modifications to the game that will put emphasis on certain skills that the students have identified as being essential to success in the activity. In this example, if the teacher wanted the students to be working on passing, They could remove the permission to take steps with the ball and make the game passing only. Now students have no choice but to make passes with their teammates to get closer to other bases, knock down pins, and gain new members on their team. In stage 6, which is performance, the teacher wants to make observations on their class and take note not only of the efficiency of the student's technique, but also the appropriatenesses of the response throughout gameplay. Based on the student's performance, the teacher may then decide to select a new game form, and the cycle of TGFU begins again. It is important to remember that all modifications to the game form that the teacher will make needs to be based around the observations that he or she is making on their student's performance.
All right. So I hope that gives you kind of a framework as to how we build this whole notion of playing a game and coming in the back door into playing the full game. So handball is a really complicated game. Something like this, students are learning that, okay, I can take 3 steps. Now you can't. You have to pass. How do you navigate that space? Okay, so to finish things off here, there's another Prezi that I'm going to leave up here. It has another cool video series about a basketball unit, so you can walk through that as well. What I'd like to do to finish off here is I do want to talk about Gaga ball. So Gaga ball is a really common sport, really common activity, I would say, that a lot of students know about, and they're really good at it. When I see people playing Gaga ball in phys ed, there's a few things that jump out that are kind of a bit of a red flag for me. Number one, it's an elimination game. So we're not maximizing student activity. Phys ed should be getting kids active. That's one of the biggest goals. The other thing is that I find many times I've seen it played, there's a big opportunity to actually teach those kids who aren't as good at it to be more successful. So when you're watching, is it the same 5 kids who are winning all the time? If it is, then there's your opportunity to actually use a teaching games for understanding model. So if we look back at the scope and sequencing, that summary document I gave you, even for grade 2, you'll see in there that there's things about avoiding, there's movement patterns, right? So can we actually break down the game of Gaga ball into its essential pieces? So there is a striking component, right? And in that striking component, it's also a target component. So it's actually about striking the ball accurately. So that's now a target game. There's also a big component about dodging. And where are you going to move? If the ball is moving towards you, should you run away from it? Should you hit it? These are things that like your natural athletes are going to pick up on really quickly, but the rest of the kids may not. So where is the learner in the game? So in this model, what I would probably do is I'd start with a group of 2 or a group of 3 with a ball each and put them in a small little area and just have them hit it back and forth. Now, can you elevate that so once they hit it, they have to move? Within Gaga ball, you could actually teach this process that in ultimate frisbee or in soccer, if you kick the ball, you should always move after. Right? So hopefully you're starting to see that there's more layers to even a game of Gaga ball. Now, how do you teach kids to avoid? Well, you could play a dodgeball game, but you're not throwing the ball, you're hitting it in a small field or in a small court. And those students have to practice jumping over that ball. Can you train their reflexes so they can actually anticipate where that ball is going to go before they even, let me say that again. They can anticipate where the ball is going before it's even hit. So the strategy, the skills, the small group work, so working in groups of 2 or 3 to even practice this. We're doing target, dodge, and strike. That covers, again, if you look at the cusps, it covers an incredible amount in one activity. That's why these cusps, in my opinion, there's not something we look at once and evaluate and we're done. We're constantly looking to see if we can move students forward with that. The next thing is the soft skills. How can you be safe in the pit? There's lots of cusps in that as well. How are we building character? How are we working on positive relationships here? How are we communicating with each other? Here's another piece. Gaga ball, I know sometimes we always need a pit. You don't actually need a pit to play it. I've played it in half of a gym. If a student gets out, what do they normally do? They stand there and they watch, or they now start playing their own little game, or they're just chatting. Why not set up 3 different pits? And if you get out, you move to the next. You move to the next. So you could have this continual circuit of gaga ball pits going on. So every kid is going to get better, not just the kids who end up in the top five all the time, because they get twice the practice. So how do we help students develop? Maybe some pits are bigger than the others, right? So when I talk about this, and again, we could spend days or weeks on this whole concept, but if you start looking at physical education as it is like a writing process, where are the kids now? What's the next step? What's one, two, or three tactical awarenesses that you can help embed by playing a game that you either create or you find? That's going to lead to a way better game in the future. My next series, live, it's actually a 3-part series or a 2-part series. So we're going to do 2 sessions a week apart. This is the stuff that I'm really excited to work with everyone on for this year, because we are going to be looking at what are the key elements that are going to allow you to feel more comfortable teaching in the gym. So for me, when I learned how to do F&P, it took me about a year. After some more tips, man, I could crank those things out quick. I could anticipate where the students were going. I could talk to parents in a way that showed them that I actually understood what the assessment was. So PE tips and tricks, that's coming up. I am going to do some recorded sessions for that as well. It'll probably be 3 sessions because there's a lot of content, but I'm going to try and give you the Coles notes if you want to move from just having kids active in the gym to being that teacher who's driving them and helping them progress physically. That's what these sessions are about. So thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully I get to see you live. It's way more entertaining and exciting when we can interact. And I will sign off as yours in pursuit of a happier, healthier, more active population.